Hello and welcome to New Central Television. I am Dakbo Adigboye and here are stories making headlines beyond the continent. Let's start off with Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court is seeking arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar. Karim Khan also says he is seeking the arrest warrant of Hamas leaders Ismail Haniyeh, Mohammed al-Masri and also Israel Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Khan says he has reasonable grounds to believe that the men bear responsibility for war crimes and crimes against humanity. In the Hamas leaders' case, the alleged crimes begin from at least the 7th of October 2023. In the Israeli leaders' case, the alleged crimes begin from at least the 8th of October 2023. Israeli politicians condemned the decision to apply for a warrant for Netanyahu, with War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz calling it a deep distortion of justice.
That I have reasonable grounds to believe, on the basis of evidence collected and examined by my office, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October 2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury to body or health or cruel treatment, willful killing or murder, and intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population, as well as crimes against humanity of extermination and or murder, persecution, and allegations of crimes of committing other.
The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he rejects with disgust an application by the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court for his arrest warrant over alleged war crimes in Gaza. The prosecutor, Karim Khan, applied for arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as top Hamas leaders on suspicion of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The prosecutor said he was seeking warrants against Netanyahu and Gallant for crimes including willful killing, extermination and/or murder, and also starvation.
כראש ממשלת ישראל, אני דוחה בשאט נפש את ההשוואה של התובע בהאג בין ישראל הדמוקרטית לבין רבי המרצחים של החמאס. זה עיוות מוחלט של המציאות.
Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst, joins me to discuss this further. Thank you for your time, Ejike. Now, how does the ICC's decision to seek arrest warrants for both Israeli and Hamas leaders impact the international community's perception of the Israel-Palestinian conflict?
Thank you for having me. Before we get into that, let's just make some legal observation. Israel is not a signature, to the Rome Statute, that this court is supposedly going to use in order to issue an arrest warrant. So since Israel is not a signature to that, I don't know how effective this is. For the publicity's sake, it's getting our attention. It's opened the door for more discussion for those who oppose and those who are for it. But the thing is, as ICC doesn't have the power, how are they going to effect this arrest? Are they going to go to Israel, or are going to track Netanyahu wherever he goes and then try to effect an arrest? So it's one of those things that again adds to the confusion and exacerbates the conflict, because Israel is not part of that agreement, so you cannot legally issue an arrest warrant to effect, what the intention is.
Okay, I mean, given the fact that you said that Israel is not a signatory to this particular agreement, talking about the statute, how might the pursuit of arrest warrants for Hamas leaders such as Sinwar and also others affect the internal dynamics with Gaza and, of course, the broader Palestinian territories?
Well, Hamas is not a formalized. It's not a formalized state. It's not a formalized nation. It's a freedom fighter group or a group of Palestinians, among others, that are wanting to take up the issue of defending their own people. So again, if they are not a signatory to it, then how are you going to effect an arrest warrant on their leaders? But again, it's one of those things that comes from UN-sponsored organizations. And it makes you wonder, do they really have a deep, thought process when they do this thing? Obviously, people in Washington, D.C. are angered by it. Israeli friends all over the world are angered by it. Of course, there are some anti-Israeli groups that are celebrating this, but how effective is it going to be? Is it going to lead to ceasefire? Is it going to call the parties to a table and let's negotiate and have something, on the ceasefire? It's not. So it's just adding more fuel, to a fire, or the one that is in an amber situation, and then it's just going to, blow up. Because Netanyahu is getting amused by this, and he's not going to arrest him.
So at the end of the day, who holds these people accountable?
That's a great question. Who? If the international court, ICC cannot, or even the UN Security Council cannot do it, then who? So that's one of those things. You remember in the case of Slobodan Milosevic of Serbia, he got arrested, and Charles Taylor of Liberia. Again, if you're a weak country and you don't have anything behind you, you could easily be picked up. But when it comes to Israel, they can't do it. They can't do it because America is their biggest supporter, and America is already screaming and calling this an outrageous, statement or position to take. So it's not going to work. As to who's going to hold them accountable, nobody. Nobody, because Israel is not afraid of UN, and then because America is also backing Israel, so nothing's going to happen until the two parties, through some miraculous engagement, they get to the table and then they sign a ceasefire agreement.
All right, thank you for being on the news with me, Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst. Once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Now, Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei announced 5 days of mourning for President Ebrahim Raisi, who died in a helicopter crash. Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi, the country's foreign minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian, and other government officials were found dead at the helicopter crash site. They were found dead on Monday after a search through a foggy mountainous region of the country's northwest. In the meantime, the Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has declared Vice President Mohammad Mokhber the country's acting president, effective immediately. The development comes barely 24 hours after President Ebrahim Raisi, alongside his Minister of Foreign Affairs, died in a helicopter crash. Let's go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, is due to give his full day of testimony in the ex-president hush money trial in New York. Trump denies falsifying business records to cover up an alleged sexual encounter with porn star Stormy Daniels, an encounter that he denies took place. Cohen once said he would take a bullet for Trump, but later turned against his former boss and has now been called as a prosecution star witness. He has already testified that Trump approved a plan to reimburse him of $130,000 that was paid to Daniels as hush money ahead of 2016 polls. In the last week, the defense spent hours attacking Cohen's credibility as a witness, highlighting his convictions for lying to Congress and other criminal charges. Let's also tell you that Donald Trump is back in court as his trial for covering up hush money payments to porn star begins to inch towards its final stages, with closing arguments expected early next week. It's still unclear if the defense will present a case they are not required to, or whether Trump himself will testify. These arguments, amongst other grievances, have also been echoed outside the courthouse by an expanded entourage of Republican lawmakers, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, who has shown up to publicly back his party's leader. Cohen has said repeatedly he takes responsibility for his actions and has faced the consequences. But the trial, including in his books, he has done little to hide his contempt for his former boss.
Determined right now in court, but we're here about an hour early today. I was supposed to be making a speech for political purposes. I'm not allowed to have anything to do with politics because I'm sitting in a very freezing cold courtroom for the last 4 weeks. It's very unfair. They have no case, they have no crime. It's been determined by everybody. You know what it's marked down in the book says? A legal expense. Again, it's not marked down as construction. It's not marked down as sheetrock and cinder block. It's marked down as legal expense. You have a lawyer. You pay him a legal expense, and it's covered in the book as legal expense. I had nothing to do with it. A bookkeeper put it down as a legal expense. This is why I'm here, because we called it a legal expense, a payment to a lawyer.
To discuss this further, I'm joined by God Bless Otubere, Global President ready to lead Africa and national security, statecraft and defense intelligence emerging expert, joining me from Washington, D.C. Thank you for your time. God bless. Now, what are the key legal arguments being made by the prosecution in this trial, and how strong is their case against the former President, Donald Trump?
Thank you so much for having me. When you look at the argument of the prosecution, is that what they're saying is that Trump ordered Cohen to make this payment for the hush money, issue, and that, Trump. You just heard Trump say that it was about construction and not what the prosecution is arguing, because if the prosecution is able to make that argument and say that the former president of the United States had made this payment from campaign donations and that he had instructed Cohen to pay that money because there will be irreparable damage to his campaign in 2016, then the jury would definitely have reason to go for, to charge him as, guilty. So if you look at it, Cohen is back in court. They just took a break and came back. And one of the things that the prosecution is arguing is also about Trump's bodyguard, whom, Cohen is arguing now or saying that he spoke to Trump over the phone on a particular day when he was instructed to make that payment. So, of course, the defendants are trying to poke a hole in Cohen's argument and trying to discredit or, just make Cohen look unbelievable, which is a very interesting reality playing out at the court even as we speak. The case is still currently ongoing. There's been arguments. They just came back from break, and I know that there will be counter arguments and all of that. And you have a lot of people coming in on the side of Trump to defend and support him. But the core argument is that that money was made or instructed to be paid to Stormy Daniels for the purpose of killing that news from coming out before the 2016 elections. And that in itself is not in tandem with the laws in the United States.
Let's also consider the significance of a high-profile Republican lawmaker, for instance, the likes of the House Speaker Mike Pence publicly supporting Trump during this trial. How much of an impact will this have on the case?
So you mean Mike Johnson,
yes.
The current speaker? Because
yes.
I thought I heard you say Mike Pence.
Mike Johnson, sorry.
That's former VP to Trump. Well, the impact of that to this case is, of course, Trump is the Republican nominee for president in the November elections in the United States. So what that tells you is it's firing up the base, is energizing those who may not be thinking of supporting Trump, and literally saying to them that, look, if you have the House Speaker supporting the president, then there's something here. Clearly, Trump is a very lucky guy to have the House Speaker supporting him in these very difficult times. But is it precedent? Do you have speakers of the House support a president who is being tried like this? Of course, you've never had that. So the impact on the case in itself, it will affect what the judge does. It will affect what the jury does, at the end of the day. But of course, it affects public opinion, and you have the Republican base who definitely will see this as a way of, galvanizing support for Trump, even as he goes through these trials.
All right, let's also look at in what ways could the outcome of this particular trial affect Trump's political future, particularly now that, America is in the election season. Do you see a situation where this would pose a major dent on his political campaign?
Well, when you look at the polls coming out of the United States, and of course you look at the polls, CNN and Fox and ABC and MSNBC and all of the polls, you realize that it has somehow made the former president popular. But of course, if the case goes on and then there is a conviction, and he's found guilty, which is what the prosecution is seeking, of course, it's going to affect a lot of Republicans, especially moderate Republicans, who cannot vote for a convicted felon as someone who should be leading, the country. So the outcome, if it becomes a case of, maybe the case is discharged and acquitted and said, there's no case here, of course, it bolsters Trump's argument all along that this is just a witch hunt and all of that. But of course, again, you want to look at it and say, Trump is a very interesting, human being. He's like he's more than a cat with 9 lives. With 9 lives rather. You think this is what is going to take him down, and then it doesn't take him down. He continues to move forward. For me, I just believe that at the end of the day, it is what happens, because this is Michael Cohen's last appearance, and then you have he's been doing these appearances for the last 4 weeks, and the final arguments are going to be heard in a couple of weeks, and this case will be closed. And we don't know where the direction will go, whether Trump will be convicted or maybe he will be acquitted. So these are some of the cases, but the scenario. But at the end of the day, it is the final, outcome of this case that will determine if he's convicted. Sadly, he still can continue running for office even if he's in prison. Crazy reality about the American system. So, but I do know that if he's convicted, it will take a lot of support away from him, especially with Republicans who are currently sitting on the fence.
God bless Otubere, global president, ready to lead Africa and national security and statecraft, and also defense intelligence emerging expert, joining me from Washington, D.C. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, now let's stay with the U.S., where WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange on Monday won a B2 appeal against a U.K. court, ruling approving his extradition to the United States to face trial on espionage charges. 2 London High Court judges granted Assange permission to appeal, having previously asked Washington to provide satisfactory assurances about free speech protections at any U.S. trial. 2 judges had deferred a decision in March on whether Assange, who is trying to avoid being prosecuted in the U.S. on espionage charges relating to the publication of thousands of classified and diplomatic documents, could take his case to another appeal hearing. An operation to remove a stranded cargo ship that has been blocking one of America's busiest ports starts nearly 2 months after it struck and destroyed the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. The complex operation would see the nearly 1,000-foot That's about 300-meter Dali container vessel transported to a marine terminal, marking a major step in reopening the key shipping channel. The Singapore flagship lost power before it plowed into a support column of the bridge on March 26th, causing it to collapse and killing 6 construction workers who had been atop the major transit route. The accident shut down the port, though temporary channels have allowed some traffic in and out of Baltimore. Authorities have been working round the clock to clear the fallen bridge and reopen the waterway after it was rendered impassable due to the sprawling wreckage. And in North America, Dominican Republic President Luis Abinader has been re-elected for another 4-year term, an endorsement of his handling of the economy and tough policies towards migration from Haiti. As the number of ballots counted past 21%, his main rival, former President Leonel Fernandez, considered defeat and congratulated him.
Nuestro país brilla con luz propia. Es el liderazgo de un país fuerte. La República Dominicana ha escrito hoy una página de avance democrático y los resultados hablan por sí solos. Con sinceridad.
In Europe, Spain's foreign ministry on Monday summoned Argentina's ambassador to demand an apology from President Javier Milei over derogatory comments about Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's wife. Without naming her, Milei called Sanchez's wife corrupt during a far-right rally in Madrid last week. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel says he expected an apology from the Argentine president. Madrid's prosecuting authority has appealed to throw out a case accusing Sanchez's wife of influence peddling and business corruption, citing a lack of evidence. Sanchez decided to stay in office after taking 5 days to weigh his political future because of the accusations.
Por eso hemos pedido al actual presidente del Gobierno de la República de Argentina una rectificación pública y, en consonancia, la respuesta del Gobierno de España será acorde a la dignidad que representa la democracia española y a los lazos de hermandad que unen a España y Argentina.
That's a wrap on the news at this time. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live across these platforms. That's DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dakbo at Digboy. Bye for now.